Dr. Michael Breus, your work for the past 27 years, you've been a sleep doctor. You're actually America's sleep doctor. You've
There you go.
always emphasized the critical role of sleep in overall health. In
Yeah,
your new book, Sleep, Drink, and Breathe, you also make the connection to how sleep quality is important for metabolism and fat loss. So I'd love for you to share right off the bat
absolutely.
here. What are the most common sleep related mistakes people make that sabotage their metabolism?
So, so number one, I love the question. I actually my second book was called The Sleep Doctor's Diet: Lose Weight Through Better Sleep, and it talks about the metabolic process and how sleep affects the metabolic process. So this is actually an area I know quite a bit about. So here's one of the things that's so fascinating is it's all about sleep deprivation, right? So if you become sleep deprived, lots of things happen to you on the biological level, specifically on the metabolic level. Now, let's first do a quick double tap on what is sleep deprivation, because let's be fair, it can mean different things to different people, right? And so sleep deprivation isn't necessarily just not getting enough hours or minutes of sleep. It can also be sleep quality, right? So, as an example, if you're drinking beers every night before you go to bed, right, you're getting terrible sleep quality. You might still get 8 hours, but you're sleep deprived for sure. Okay. So, this is all within the context of sleep deprivation. Now, you know what your own personal sleep deprivation feels like, right? You wake up, you're like, oh, I can't get up. I don't want to get up. You're, dragging it all day. You're not kind of your normal energetic self. That's what we're talking about here with sleep deprivation. It can also come from things like sleep apnea. It can come from things like insomnia, major sleep disorder, pain, a whole host of different things. So again, this is all within the context of what is sleep deprivation and how does it affect metabolism. So it affects it four different ways. So first of all, as soon as you become sleep deprived, your metabolism slows down. So you might be wondering why this is. This is to conserve the resources that you've got on board, right? So what your brain is saying, oh crap, I'm awake and I've only got a certain amount of energy left in this unit. I better slow down my energy consumption because I don't want to run out. So that's the first thing it does, is it slows down your metabolism. The second thing it does is it increases your appetite. Now, appetite is also, again, this is to now create the situation where your brain wants to forage, your brain wants to go out there and get resources, right? Wants to go get food, right? And so this makes a lot of sense because your body is up and awake. It's probably going to need more food. We need to slow down energy consumption. We need to increase that idea set in our head of go get some more food, right? Then your hormones go nuts. So the two hormones that go crazy in particular, one is called leptin, the other is called ghrelin. So ghrelin is, I remember it because it starts with G, it's the go hormone. So this actually makes you feel hungry. Now I want to be clear, in the brain, appetite and hunger are two completely different things. So this is now stimulating hunger, right, which is a whole nother thing by dropping the amount of, oh no, I'm sorry, elevating the amount of ghrelin by 20%. Then leptin, which is the hormone of satiety or feeling full, that drops by 15%. Right? So could you get a worse freaking situation if you tried? Right? Like all of a sudden you get sleep deprived and your hunger is high, your appetite is high, your feelings of fullness are low, and your metabolism is slow, right? So you are completely screwed the second you become really sleep deprived. But it gets worse. So here's what happens is you've got so much cortisol going on in your head now because you're sleep deprived. Your body activates the autonomic nervous system, specifically the sympathetic side of this, to help activate cortisol. And what does that do? Well, your brain doesn't like all that cortisol wandering around in it. So it decides, hey, I need to get rid of this cortisol. Here's how I'll do it. I'll make some serotonin. You know what the easiest way to make serotonin is? Eat a cookie, right? So it increases cravings like crazy for high sugar, high fat foods because it's trying to get the high carbohydrates and high fats into you. So that way it'll produce serotonin to quell the cortisol, which is all there due to sleep deprivation. So honestly, it couldn't be worse.
Oh my gosh, that's a metabolic disaster. It
Yeah,
really is.
basically. Yeah,
So
basically.
you distinguished here between quality and quantity of sleep, and we'll dive deeper
Right.
into that.
Yeah,
You mentioned, okay, the metabolism is going to slow down to conserve energy because you're low
right.
on energy. Makes sense. Then you have this increase in appetite where the ghrelin, the hunger hormone, which I call the gremlin, right? Because it's
Yeah,
nobody likes
there you go.
a gremlin.
Mm-hmm.
20% increase. So you're hungrier, you have more
Yep.
cravings. And
Yep.
since the cortisol is high in the body and the brain, you're hungrier for serotonin producing foods, the cookie, the carbs, the
Right.
sugar. And then when you eat, you're less satisfied because the leptin has dropped. What a metabolic
Exactly.
disaster that's going on here. So would you say, because so many people think, okay, in order to lose weight, burn fat, fix a broken metabolism, I'll simply just be in a calorie deficit. I'll do keto and fasting. They
No.
bypass this foundation of quality sleep. Is this the first step here to lose weight?
Absolutely. And that's what I said in my book. So, any diet you do, anything you do, if it's keto, if it's paleo, if it's fasting, it doesn't matter. No diet works well without sleep. None of them do because of this mechanism that I just described to you. So, like, no matter what your goal is, like, if you ain't sleeping, you ain't meeting your goal, I can assure you.
I agree.
And it's kind of weird too, because, I mean, sleep is recovery, right? Like, this is the time that you're giving your body some rest. Like, why would anybody want to skimp out on that? It doesn't make sense to me. It's like that is the time where you're like bringing the body into the body shop and getting the dents and the dinks all pulled out, and making your next day a better place to be. So I don't know. It's just always interesting to me. People are like, oh, I don't have time to sleep. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. It's a very common in the entrepreneur mindset, like that
Yes.
grind, grind, grind. And I used to be like that myself. And I noticed I could eat a crappy diet and it'll affect me negatively. I could
Right.
be sedentary and not exercise, and that'll affect me negatively. But if I get crappy sleep, that impacts me more than both of those combined.
Exactly. It's
Like
quite amazing, isn't it?
yeah, it's amazing in the most awful way. In
Yeah,
my space, the biohacking space, when you get quality sleep and recover, it allows you to do more biohacks and benefit from it versus that being
absolutely.
too stressful for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything you do better with a good night's sleep. Sleep affects every organ system and every disease state. Like, I mean, people don't understand this. Like, if you're not sleeping well and you have cancer, your cancer will get worse. I can
Yeah.
guarantee you. Okay. Like, that's how this works, right? Sleep is recovery. This is where immune function, a lot of immune function starts with initiation of growth hormone, but also our killer T cells are developed during stage 3, 4 sleep. So again, you really need to sleep. It's just the thing.
Which stage of sleep are you getting most of the fat burning hormones activated?
So it's interesting, really stage 3, 4 sleep, which is the physical restoration sleep, because that's when all the work is kind of being done. But interestingly enough, the highest caloric burn is actually during REM sleep. So we use glucose one way and like calories differently. So it's kind of interesting because of those fantastic movies that get played in your head called dreams. Those take up a lot of caloric density, and so that turns out. But what somebody asked me one day. This is before Ozempic, but they were like, is Ambien the new weight loss drug, right? Because if you think about it, like every single person who's out there who's trying to lose weight, again, whatever form or fashion you're in, if you sleep well, then you will do well. But here's the answer to that question. The answer is no. Ambien is not a good weight loss drug because here's something that's fascinating that a study just came out about this, Ben. I think you'll find this quite interesting. So during stage 3, 4 sleep, there's something called the glymphatic system, which comes in and it scoops these proteins out of the brain. Now, every time we have a thought, there's a remnant that comes from that, and it's a protein. And when these proteins accumulate, they have a tendency to wrap around the nerves. That's called Alzheimer's disease. Bad shit. Like nobody wants that. So we want this scooping process that happens during stage 3, 4 sleep. We want that to happen on the regular, right? Here's what's interesting. Ambien makes it not happen.
Wow.
Yeah, they just had a study about this. It's
That's not
fascinating.
good. That
No,
is
bro, it's
not.
not good.
Wow.
It's not good. And I mean, there's some interesting secrets about Ambien that people don't know. Like, I mean, number one, like Ambien really only gives you about 20, 25 minutes more sleep across the night. Like it's not this super power. I mean, it works. Don't get me wrong. It gets people out. And I mean, I've used it for jet lag and things like that. And I'll tell you, I think it's a great drug when used appropriately. But there are so many people who are on it not unnecessarily, and they're dependent on it, and that is very problematic for the study that I was just telling you about, where it doesn't scoop the proteins.
Wow. Well, in your latest book, Sleep, Drink, Breathe, we're staying on sleep right now. We'll
Yeah,
move on to drink, what you're doing
sure.
right now. You're getting hydrated and breathe in a little bit. Can you just share with my audience those
Yeah,
different stages of sleep? And then
sure.
after you lay them out, can you share what would be the optimal time spent in those stages?
Okay, good. So there's 4 stages of sleep and 4 stages of non-REM sleep and 1 stage of REM sleep. So there's stages 1, 2, 3, 4, and then REM. And so here's the bottom line: is sleep runs in cycles, and you actually have to do it in this particular pattern. You go from wake to stage 1, stage 2, you drop down into stage 3, 4, you go back to stage 2, and then you go into REM sleep. That's considered a sleep cycle, but you kind of have to follow those dance moves exactly, or your brain does. Now, here's what's interesting: is each cycle doesn't have the same amounts of stuff in it. So the first 2 cycles will have most of your stage 3, 4 sleep. Again, that is the physical restorative sleep. Then the last third of the night will have most of your REM sleep, which is your mental restoration. This is where you move information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. Those crazy things called dreams happen in your head. What I believe that dreams are, and I think the data would back me up on this, is dreams are emotional metabolism. Okay, so when you have, you're the metabolic guy, so I figured I'd throw in the
I
metabolic
love that.
part.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about dreams is, if you get scared in your dream enough and you're not processing that emotion, you wake up. That's called a nightmare, right? So we know that there's an emotional content to these dreams. And so it's quite interesting, when I find people who've been in traumas, right? And so people with PTSD, people who were in the Los Angeles fires, people, I mean, like, there's all kinds of stuff going on, right? And so when you start to look at all of that, it gets very interesting very quickly. But the dreams are where a lot of that comes out. Okay, and that's REM sleep. Now, again, more in the back half of the night is REM, more in the front half of the night is stage 3, 4, which is kind of that physical restoration. Stages 1 and 2 are technically important, but they really act more like a buffer. I mean, there's certain things that do happen in each one of the stages, but I don't think, for the audience's sake of me going down the rabbit hole, that's probably not where we want to go. Now, how much do you want to get of each one of them across the night? Here's the thing: is you are your best doctor, okay? So when you wake up and within 3 or 4 minutes how you feel, you know if you got a good night's sleep or not, okay? I can assure you of that. I can't count, dude, the number of people that come up to me and they say, oh, my aura score said I was a 47 and it hijacked my day and I feel like crap all day and now I'm gonna go to bed early. I'm like, bro, like, relax, okay? Like, you don't need, like, number one, nobody should be looking at their sleep score every day. Nobody. It does you absolutely no good one way or another. What you're really looking for are trends, number one.
Yeah.
Number two is they're not accurate, right? And so, like, the best tracker on the market, which I would say arguably right now from a tracker standpoint is probably Aura or Whoop Strap. The issues there are there may be 80% accurate to full nighttime polysomnography, right? And so again, like, people call me up all the time, like, Michael, I only get 14 minutes of deep sleep. Am I going to die? I'm like, well, you're going to die, but it's probably not from deep sleep. Because here's the thing: is they've been getting 14 minutes for the last 3 weeks, right? And so the device is being consistently inaccurate, right? Which I can work with. It's when the deflection, when we see the delta, right? So we go I don't give a shit if it's 14 minutes of deep sleep every night, but if it goes from 14 to 347 to 462, I want to know what happened on those nights, because that's where the information is going to be. The behavioral information is probably going to be the most interesting. So that's what I kind of tell people. I mean, you're looking at amounts, roughly 25% REM, 25% deep, and then the rest is light sleep, which is a combination of 1 and 2. But also, as you get older, like, I'm 57, there's no universe I get 25% deep or 25% REM. My numbers are much smaller. So it's also going to be on a scale based on age, based on medical frailty, medications you're taking, how much alcohol you drink, do you smoke cannabis? Like, there's a whole host of things that are going to change those numbers.
Okay, that's a good breakdown. I was going to ask you about trackers. So yeah, Aura and Whoop seem to be the top dogs, although they're not 100% accurate. I use
Yeah, well, I
Aura.
will tell you, there is one that is 100% accurate that just came out called Happy Ring. And so this is actually FDA approved for full nighttime polysomnography.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy,
Have you
dude.
used it?
Yeah, I've got one right here.
Let me see what it looks like.
Yeah, it
Oh,
looks
it
like an
looks
Aura.
just like an Aura.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
thicker, and it's a little bit weightier. It has dual temperature sensors. It has dual like accelerometry. It's got lots of different kind of cool stuff in it. I really like it. I've actually done a sleep study with it.
oh, wow. Okay. Is that available to the public, or do you have to be a
Yeah,
practitioner to get? Okay, cool. Happy
no,
Ring.
you can order right there online. Happy Sleep, I think it's called. I don't know. I
And
have no affiliation with the company.
how does it compare to your Aura Ring stats?
Oh, they're much better. The Happy Ring is much better.
Much
No
better in
question.
terms of like you're seeing more deep in REM or like what's the difference here?
Oh no, so more accurate. So yeah, like the accuracy level, I think is. So you got to remember is like when you're trying to pull this kind of information off of a ring, right? Like there's only so much data you can get. You have to basically use it as a proxy. So what you're looking at is core body temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, things of that nature. Now, I think Aura up until now has probably done the best job, but Happy's FDA approved for full nighttime PSG. So it's like this is what doctors use. Like this is what I would use. Like I could create a clinic with just rings at this point,
Sick.
which is kind of cool when you think about it, right? Like internet age and all of that stuff. Like, I mean, we could do something easy where you never have to, whatever.
Yeah, that is sick. Oh, I'm gonna test that ring out. What are some of the things that people are doing at night that's preventing them from getting these restorative deep stages of sleep where they burn fat?
Well, I think the biggest one is drinking alcohol. it's always like always the negotiation point I have with my patients. They're always like, "Oh, do I have to stop drinking alcohol?" It's like, no, you don't have to. But like, if you want to stop sleeping like crap, then it's probably a good idea. Like, like I tell everybody all the time, I'm like, look, just do the experiment. Like, do it for 2 weeks, right? And if you can't stop drinking for 2 weeks, we have a whole different discussion we need to have,
Mm,
right?
yeah, that's a good
So
point.
like, right. So it's like, just hey, lay off the sauce for, 2 weeks, and I can assure you your HRV is going to get better. Your overall metabolic rate will get better, and for sure your sleep is going to get better. So like that's usually the number one thing that people are kind of messing up is they're drinking. Now, let's say you want to have just one glass of wine with dinner. I don't think I care if it's at 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, and you have a glass of water after that. If you can give yourself 3 or 4 hours after you've had it, then you're probably okay. But here's the thing. It's kind of interesting is it takes the average human approximately 1 hour to digest one alcoholic beverage when awake, but when asleep, that number hits, I think, almost 2.5 hours.
Wow.
So, right, think about it. Like your metabolic system is definitely slower, and you've got something that you've added to the system, alcohol, that makes it even more slower because it's a depressant, right? So once again, it's just it's all these behaviors that seem to get in the way of people knowing what to do and how to do it, right? So I would say alcohol consumption is probably the biggest thing that we kind of see that people really it's very preventable, things like that. Also understanding caffeine consumption and your level of sensitivity to caffeine is, I think, a good one. I'm not a big caffeine drinker. I have a half a cup before I work out sometimes. That's about it. Because I kind of go to bed when I know I should. I wake up when I should, and my chrono. I'm kind of locked and loaded on my chronotype. So for me, it all seems to kind of make itself work. But I'd say those are the big things that people out there can really start to kind of just think through. It's like, all right, number one, like, hey, maybe I just have one cup of coffee and it's at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Like that would be fine. Like like you had sleep doctor approved, like I got no problems with that. It's just when you're having your third cup at 2 o'clock, and we know caffeine stays in your system 6 to 8 hours. And if you're older, then you're metabolically a little bit slower. So then it might stay in 9 or 10 hours, and that's only for 50% of it to get out of you,
Mm.
right? So again, you just have to be thinking, like, just be thoughtful. You'd be surprised how easy it is to mess up your sleep.
Yeah, what's interesting with the alcohol part, I don't drink alcohol. I haven't had it in 9+ years, so that doesn't impact me because I don't have it. But I have a lot of
Mhm.
clients who do, and it
Yeah,
does. I see it on their Aura Ring scores and just how they feel the next morning. It impacts them
right,
right the next day. For
totally.
me, the number one thing that disrupts my sleep
Mhm.
is when I eat too close to bed. And I have friends that are from South America, Argentina, Brazil. They love to eat late dinners, and
Oh, I know.
I hate it, Michael. Whenever I eat, like let's say I go to bed usually at 9:30 p.m. If I eat anytime past 7 p.m., I
Right,
will see my resting heart rate increase, my HRV drop, my
absolutely.
deep sleep
Yeah.
decline, REM, and I'm waking up and I don't feel great. So talk about the problem with eating right before bed.
So there's a lot of problems with eating before bed. So it's funny that you bring this up. You're like the third person that's brought this up with me fairly recently. I think, we haven't really thought about, well, number one, it's the size of the meal that's problematic, right? And so dinner is oftentimes, for most Americans, it's the biggest meal of the day, right? And so that is problematic in and of itself, just because your body is not metabolically at its peak, in order to process, said food. And, a lot of people are eating, you know, I mean, protein's great, but a lot of people are down in the carbs and like having pasta and potatoes and all these other things. And it's just like, number one, it's your your body has a certain amount of energy, right? And so when you want to go to sleep, you want that energy to go down, not up, right? And when you've got a big meal in your belly, the energy has to go up to deal with that situation. And so I think that's kind of the best way to sort of put it. I will tell you, it's kind of interesting. I'm sure you heard of this guy, Brian Johnson.
Yes.
So I've been on stage with him a couple of times. We went out to dinner. We were at a dinner together once, and it's kind of interesting. And he said that he stops eating at 11 a.m. And he said that it has the most profound effect on his sleep.
Wait, you froze there. You froze there. Repeat what you just said.
So he said that he stops eating. He has last meal at 11 a.m.
Wow.
Right. And he said it's had the most profound effect on his sleep.
I believe it, but that's not socially doable for most people. They're not going to want to do that.
But it's interesting because he's definitely a sleep cheerleader. Like he says, sleep is the number one thing that you need so that you don't die, which I would, of course, agree with. But I think it's interesting what he's kind of thinking about, or how he's thinking about it. And, who knows, maybe, well, here's what's interesting is a lot of people, when they fast, they just skip breakfast. Like, what if they just skip dinner?
Yeah.
Right. And they had a nice big breakfast, a nice, like, high protein, high good fat breakfast, like, a breakfast burrito with avocado and, nice fluffy eggs and, turkey bacon and all that kind of good stuff in there. Like, that would be awesome. And then just have a nice small dinner, or skip dinner, and have your fast start at 4 o'clock, or something like that. It just doesn't seem like people are thinking in that direction, but I wonder if we would find it to be more effective if they did.
It is. And, many years ago, I used to get on people. I used to make content about breakfast being the dumbest meal of the day, skip it. And I have done a whole 180 there. I agree with you. I believe if you're going to fast and if you're going to choose to skip a meal, skipping dinner is going to be far more beneficial than skipping breakfast. Now, me knowing that, I still tend to have dinner and skip breakfast just because it works better for my schedule. But
Right.
there are studies. Dr. Courtney Peterson from
Okay.
Alabama, Birmingham, she had a study showing they took two different groups. They were both practicing an 18-6 intermittent fasting schedule, 18 hours fasting,
Okay.
6-hour eating window, kept the calories the same. Everything was controlled in a lab. They measured sirtuins and autophagy through the LC3A protein. And the group that skipped
Right.
breakfast the group that had breakfast and skipped dinner had 10% more of their sirtuin activated and 22% more autophagy in
See?
just a week, bro.
See?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. We're going to see more and more about that. So intermittent fasters, that's going to be the best protocol if you can do that.
Yeah, I
With
agree.
with sleep, you mentioned heart rate variability. This is something I
Yeah.
want to go into a little bit with you. Talk about it in the book.
Sure.
I talk a lot about hormesis, Michael, and how stress is not bad unless you're not adapting to the stress. But if you stay in this
Right.
hormetic zone, it's so important for you. So in the biohacking space and just fasting space, they're all stressors. And when you adapt to
Right.
them, you get stronger. But a lot of people don't adapt to it. And I use heart rate variability as a gauge to see if we're adapting to these stressors. Could you share more
Okay.
about the importance of tracking heart rate variability? And then what are your favorite methods for increasing it?
So, it's interesting. I've had a love-hate battle with heart rate variability personally, because I think it's an interesting metric, but also at the same time, I think it's difficult for some people because there's variables that are both in their control as well as out of their control, right? So heart rate variability is exactly what it sounds like. It's the variation from heartbeat to heartbeat, so from the high to the low. And the low usually occurs during sleep, and the high usually occurs during some activity, and then you plot this over a particular period of time. You can look at it as an average. You can look at it as a point in time. You can look at it as a whole bunch of different ways that you can look at it statistically. But think of it as a general health metric. The higher your heart rate variability, the more healthy you would be considered being. Okay, as a kind of general rule set there. So here's what's interesting is when people do stupid shit that makes their heart beat fast in their sleep, guess what? They have terrible heart rate variability. So that's all the things that we've been talking about, which is eating right before bed, having caffeinated beverages too late in the day, having alcohol, not following a regular sleep schedule. Like all of those things increase your heart rate, which actually closes that gap. And so what you want is you want to have the lowest heart rate while you're sleeping and the highest heart rate while you're doing inactivity. Well, if you eat a meal right before bed, you're not going to get to that low heart rate that you want to get to. And so it's going to be higher, which mathematically makes your heart rate variability less, which is not the direction that you want it to go in. So, I mean, we look at things like cannabis is another one. Like a lot of people say, oh, I have a cannabis gummy before bed and it helps me with my sleep. Might help you fall asleep, but it doesn't help your heart rate variability. I can assure you of that. Your heart rate variability is going to be much less because it increases heart rate, also decreases REM sleep, by the way. So it can have effects on your emotional processing and things like that.
That's good. Yeah, I've been working on my HRV the past few years, and I've been able to increase it over the years. My average around
That's awesome.
these days 65, 70, but when I first started
Wow.
tracking was around 39, 40, 45. My fiance has an abnormally high HRV. Her average is like 150, but
Wow.
she's not a professional athlete or anything. There's a genetic component. She had some atrial, what's the term? She had some heart stuff when she was a kid, and I think that's contributing to that high score. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's not,
Interesting.
and well, I used to like, you don't compare your HRV to anybody else. I used to compare mine to hers. It used to drive me crazy. So
Bad idea.
yeah, bad idea.
Bad idea.
You just want to find your baseline and work on increasing it.
Yeah.
Minerals, minerals, minerals. You hear a lot of people out there speaking about the benefits of taking minerals, and it is important because in this day and age, our crops, our fruits, and our vegetables, they are depleted of minerals. So you've heard of the keto flu, you've heard of symptoms doing keto and fasting. People just don't feel good sometimes. This is the number one reason why. So my go-to for replenishing my electrolytes and my minerals, for enhancing my immune system, for gut support, for detoxification, is Bean Minerals. It has fulvic and humic compounds, and these have over 70 trace minerals and really important electrolytes to replenish your body with. Check out Bean Minerals over at beanminerals.com. Use the coupon code Azadi, my last name, at checkout to get a nice discount. That is AZADI at checkout over at beanminerals.com.
Melatonin is something you talk about in the book, and
Yeah.
I love melatonin. I talk about it, and it's so much more, to your point, than just a sleep agent. So give us the lowdown on melatonin.
Yeah.
What can it do for sleep, but what does it do beyond sleep for us?
So it's interesting. I think it actually has more implications for beyond sleep than it does for sleep, if I'm being honest. For sleep, I use it in my patients for jet lag. We use it for shift work. We also use it for something called REM behavior disorder, which is actually a situation where people act out their dreams, believe it or not. And then we use it for people with melatonin deficiencies, right? And so once you hit 50, 55 in that age range, there's a reasonable likelihood you could have a melatonin deficiency. And so then it might make sense. The biggest problem with melatonin is it's overdosed. So it's not in the correct dosage for sleep. For sleep, the correct dosage based on the data that comes out of MIT is somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5 milligrams. So it's a very
Orally?
small dose, orally
And
taken. Yeah.
only like 2.5% of that actually enters the bloodstream. No, isn't it like a small amount?
Yeah, so the goal is to do it sublingually. So if you take it orally versus a tablet, so if you just put it under your tongue and get it, you can get it up and in much easier. And it works really, really well at that dose. Even if you take it in a tablet format, yeah, it's a good bit of it's going to get eaten up by your stomach acid, but you'll still get some of it in there. But I would not take, in terms of a tablet or a gummy, anything over 3 milligrams is I would argue a bad idea.
Why?
Now,
Why? Could you share why? Why is it a bad idea?
so that's where you start to get the side effects from melatonin, like super vivid dreams. Also, a lot of people don't know it, but melatonin changes the effectiveness of birth control. It changes the effectiveness of SSRI medication like Prozac and Zoloft. It changes the effectiveness of blood pressure medication and of diabetes medication. So you just have to really know, and to be clear, most of your doctors aren't going to know that. You have to look that up. So before you take something like melatonin, you really, number one, you got to make sure you're not taking anything else. And if you are, you need to understand that this is a circadian pacemaker. So it makes sense that it's going to change, right, the effectiveness of other drugs, because now you've got something that's basically telling the internal biological clock, hey, new time change, going on right now. So I think those are the most important issues. I will also say one more thing about melatonin that I think is important is I'm not a big fan of melatonin for children. There are a lot of people out there, pediatricians in particular, who will say, hey, it's fine, give your kid melatonin. Here's the problem. 99% of children have plenty of melatonin on board to fall asleep, no problem. And more importantly, I don't think it's right to teach your kid they need a pill to sleep. I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So, for me, I tell my clients, don't use melatonin in anybody under 18. I don't think it's a good idea. And also remember, don't forget, it does affect birth control. So believe it or not, in Europe, at high dosages, it's sold as a contraceptive.
Really?
Yeah, most people don't know that either. It's crazy. There's some interesting stuff going on with melatonin. There is one children patient population that I think does benefit from this, and this is children on the autism spectrum. There's good data to show 6 to 8 milligrams for those kids seems to work really, really well. I don't think they know why, but it does seem to work well.
How is it working as a contraceptive at high doses?
So I don't know. It's in Germany.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's like outside my realm of expertise, but yeah, it's crazy.
Well,
but I mean, when we say high dosages, we're talking like, 50, 80, 100 milligrams.
yeah, so you're probably gonna think I'm crazy because I've done I've used cyclical melatonin at really high doses, even higher than that, 200 milligrams, 300 milligrams via suppository. It doesn't. I mean, my sleep is great. It doesn't. I don't take it for the sleep. I take it for just the oxidative stress component, the mitochondrial health
Yep.
component, and
Yep.
I've loved it. I don't take any medication, so there's nothing contraindicated with
That's
that.
good.
But for me, it's been wonderful, these high doses cyclically. But I haven't found anything in the literature, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that shows there's a negative feedback loop with melatonin in human beings. I haven't seen that anywhere.
I don't believe I have. I don't know if you saw it, there was a melatonin series where they interviewed 10 different melatonin like experts. There's a company called 𝙎𝙬𝘽𝙎𝘾, so
Yeah,
you should check
I've
them out.
interviewed what's her name, Deanna Minnick. Yeah,
So she's the one who did this. So they did a melatonin summit. So you should check it out because those are the guys, like there are people in there who swear by it for COVID. They
yeah.
swear by it for antioxidant, like all of those different things. I just haven't, like, it's just outside my scope, like the only thing I use it for is sleep. And that's why I'm pretty consistent about the dosages and things like
Okay.
that.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't really take it for sleep. I take it for all the other benefits, and I've been loving it. I've been doing high dose, and it's been fine for me. But even knowing that there's no negative feedback loop, at least nothing I've seen, I still don't like the idea of taking it every night. I still take it cyclically from time to time when I travel.
Yeah.
I take it with me. Just
Yeah.
I don't want to rely on it. All right, let's transition to breathing here. So, can you
Sure.
share the connection between the way that the role of breath and metabolic flexibility, meaning you emphasize these breathing techniques in your book. How does
Yes.
proper breathing influence stress hormones like cortisol, and how could breathing exercises directly enhance fat oxidation and metabolic function?
So the first part is easier to answer than the second. So the first part is, how does breathing affect, what was it again?
Stress hormones like cortisol.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, there's different cyclical types of breathing that you can do, which will turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, which then helps calm down your cortisol response, right? It's kind of like GABA gets emitted, and that's kind of the brakes of the brain, right? And now all of a sudden everything starts to slow down. It's fascinating to me because most people, when they think about breathing, they think about fast breathing, like when they're running a race,
Yeah,
or at their maximum, and they think about very fast breathing
true.
as a way to add oxygen to the system and make the system go faster, when in fact there's far more breathing techniques to slow the system down. And again, it's such an interesting system, right? Because just by utilizing different types of breathing, and I mean that's something we should double tap on as well. It's like for folks out there who might be like, what are you talking about, types of breathing? Like, I breathe just fine. Like, what we're talking about is things like something called 4-7-8 breathing or box breathing. There's a whole host of different methodologies that, by the way, not that either one of us created. These things have been around for thousands and thousands of years. So, I think there's a lot of utility in understanding how you can turn on or off the autonomic nervous system, which is made up of the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic. And of course, that has a big effect on metabolism as well, right? So when you turn on the sympathetic nervous system, your metabolism kicks in versus your parasympathetic when your metabolism slows down. When you're looking at fat oxidation, I would guess, I mean, it's not my area, but I would guess that you want more sympathetic activation than you want parasympathetic.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. You know, what's interesting, as you were sharing this, I was looking up our previous interview that we did, which was 4 years ago. I'm finding it here on YouTube. And the reason I'm thinking about this is because the breathing part. You know, when we first had our interview and just many years ago, my breathing was I was such a chronic mouth breather, especially overnight. I'd wake up with my sore throat.
Right.
And I started to go to a biological dentist, and he started working on my facial structure. And
Hmm.
he had me I've been wearing this is a palate expander, a facial
Expander.
expander, yeah,
Yep.
for numerous years. And now I'm wearing this Invisalign sort of thing that's straighten out the teeth, which I'm almost done with. But when I look at my face from 4 years ago, I'm going to pull up the interview and see what my face looks like with you versus today. My face looks completely different, and my breathing is so much improved, which has correlated to my sleep
Right.
getting better as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
So,
let me show this.
yep.
Let me pull this up,
Go
and
ahead.
then I want to hear your thoughts here. So let me see if I could share this with you here, because here we go. I'm going to pull this up. Let's see what I look like. I didn't even look at this yet, but this is our previous interview. Let's see if I
Oh,
could
wow.
get.
Look, you do look different.
I know, completely different, dude. I know I had the
Yeah.
beard there. Look at you. You're in a different room as well. But let me see if I could get I want to see if I could see. I'm gonna put this on mute. Let me see if I can see my teeth, because my teeth are super crowded. You could see. I mean, I just look different. I'm puffy. My face is
Yeah.
like narrow. Well, not narrow,
You
but
look
like my mouth.
significant.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. You
anyways,
look
I
more
want to.
like a bird.
Yeah. Now look at me here. I mean, it's completely different, right? And that has
Right.
correlated to me breathing properly. Of course, it helps with nitric oxide. So share a little bit more
Yeah.
about why it is beneficial to take care of this.
So it's interesting. If we put palate expanders in every child in the United States, we would get rid of sleep apnea in 10 years. No
Boom.
problem. Like
Boom.
completely get rid of it. What happens is, and so what we're talking about here is your palate is kind of the roof of your mouth, right? And so let's take an example of kids who suck their thumbs, right? So what happens is they're pushing on the roof of their mouth while they're sucking their thumbs, and that actually changes the morphology. It actually changes the structure. And what ends up happening is the roof of the palate gets more arched and higher up into the sinuses, and everything gets super crowded in there because it's not a big area to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about is when you expand the palate, you put in this, it's almost like braces,
Yeah.
which actually helps open up the mouth. And what we're talking about before is Ben's appearance was more kind of beak like. Everything was kind of pushing forward. Now his face is actually spreading apart more, and you can actually see a better jawline. You can actually see more of his face. Before you could kind of see just the front, and then the sides kind of went by. And so from a sleep apnea standpoint, it's just about making the pipe bigger, right?
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, you've got, two nostrils and one mouth. You really don't want to be breathing through your mouth all night long, because it's like putting leaded gas, in the engine, right? There's no filtration system. It's not good stuff. It's not warm. It's not moist. The nose does a lot of important kind of things. But a lot of people have deviated septums. They've got this arched palate, which is pushing right up into that whole nasal area, which then makes that area even more crowded. And then you can't breathe because you have some small particulate that wanders in, like pet hair or dust or something like that. You have a little bit of congestion, and boom, your nose gets clogged up, your mouth drops open. Now you're breathing through your mouth, and it's a mess.
Yeah, that's not fun. My dentist actually told me that I had one of the highest palates he's ever seen in his entire career. I'm like, oh, great. What are the
Great.
options? He said, you could do surgery. I don't recommend that. We could go the slow route and put this expander. And I wore it for like 4.5 years, because you're supposed to wear it
Yeah.
as much as possible. But when you're speaking all day, how the hell
Right.
are you going to wear it? Right. So I only
Right.
wore it at
Exactly.
night.
I have a brand new book called Metabolic Freedom, published with Hay House, being released May 13th, 2025. This book outlines the exact steps to restore your metabolism, heal your hormones, and burn fat. It presents to you the problems to why we see metabolic disease and the exact steps to restore your metabolism to burn serious fat. At the end of the book, there's a 30-day plan for you to lose up to 30 pounds in 30 days. And here's the exciting announcement. You could get this book right now. And when you order it today, you'll get a free Metabolic Freedom mini course where I teach you how the metabolism works, my favorite keto and fasting hacks to burn fat, and exclusive interviews with Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Daniel Pompa, Cynthia Thurlow, Megan Ramos, and others. That is all for free in this mini course. If you go to the QR code on the screen right now, or if you're listening on the podcast, head to metabolicfreedombook.com or click the link at the top of the notes of this video and this podcast. You could go purchase the book right now and get immediate access to this free mini course and exclusive interviews. Click the link down below or go to metabolicfreedombook.com.
But what are your thoughts on mouth taping as not the solution to getting to the cause here? The solution is to expand the palate. But what are your thoughts on mouth taping these days?
Well, so here's what I think is number one, I think it's a bit too popular, and I'll tell you why. I don't think people are getting screened for sleep apnea first. And so if you get screened for sleep apnea first and you ain't got sleep apnea, tape your mouth shut. I don't care. Okay. Have fun. But like at the end of the day, people are not, what they're doing is they snore really loud. So their wife sees something on TikTok or they see something on TikTok and they tape their mouth shut and then they shut up. And so they think it's great. And all you're doing is masking the symptoms of a very potentially deadly situation called sleep apnea, right? And so stop being stupid. Like, if you have sleep apnea or not. I mean, when my son was 6 years old, he could sit in the airport and figure out who has sleep apnea. Like, this isn't rocket science, guys. And like, don't tape your mouth if you think you've got sleep apnea. Go get a sleep test. Like I said, get a ring. It's $200. Like, that's it. And insurance covers it in some cases. So it's like, it's not that hard to get this whole thing kind of figured out. Now, let's say you've screened yourself and you don't have sleep apnea, you want to tape your mouth, that's fine, but don't go horizontal. It's a small vertical piece, right? You don't have to go buy some fancy schmancy tape, okay? Go to the drugstore, go to the first aid section, and you'll see that it's right there. It's called micropore tape. It's skin tape, right? It's what we use in surgery and things like that. It's very simple. Again, small piece going vertically, not horizontally. You'll be just fine.
Well, this podcast is sponsored by Somnifix. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. That's good. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Okay, let's move on to the drink part. Why did you have a section in the book about hydration, and give us some tips on how to stay hydrated?
Yeah, when I started the whole reason I wrote the book was because I think wellness has just gotten too complicated. It's just like, oh my God, do I have a green drink? Do I hop in the sauna? Is it a cold plunge? Like,
For sure.
What are you doing to me? Like, there's just too much stuff. And so I was reading a book by my friend Joe Polish called Life Gives to the Giver. And in it, he talks about this idea he calls dominoes. And so dominoes are skills that once you gain them, it kind of opens up these new doors and knocks over new ideas and new skills. And so I was starting to think, I was like, wonder what the dominoes of wellness, right, would be, right? Just kind of playing off of that idea. And then I started to think, well, they would probably be things that you can't live without, right? And so I started to think like, all right, well, what are the things that you can't live without? Well, you can't live without breathing, right? I think the longest a person has gone is 24 minutes. And that was one of those people who does like free dives, right? And like fills their lungs with nitrogen, or I don't know how the hell they do it, but 24 minutes is a pretty long time.
Wow.
I heard Kate Winslet did it for like 6.5 minutes when she was filming Avatar. That's pretty crazy.
My gosh.
Right? Like, that's some time underwater. So I think, that felt important, right, as one of the dominoes. Hydration made sense to me. You can go about 2 days before things really start to turn real bad for you real fast. I understood that. And there's also a good relationship between hydration and sleep. Sleep in and of itself is a dehydrative process. You lose almost a full liter of water just from the humidity in your breath.
Wow.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So you really have to know and understand a little bit about hydration there. And then the breathe part of it, I'm sorry, I talked about breathe. The sleep part was kind of easy, right? You really can't go that long without sleep, like 5 or 6 days, and then you are hallucinating. It is not pretty. And so it felt like, if I was going to choose what were the basic dominoes, it felt like these 3 things, because you can go, 30 days without food, right? And you can go a lifetime without exercise. So it just like, people are like, oh, why did you choose 3 things that our body does automatically for itself? I'm like, because we're doing them wrong. And if you just like, it's like anything else. If you fix your form, like, you get more out of the experience.
That's good. Yeah, you're spot on. We need all of these 3 things to survive and to thrive as well. With drinking water, for example, as it relates to sleep, What are your thoughts on having a cutoff time at night where you're not drinking
Yeah.
fluids before bed? Any validity behind that?
There is, I mean, especially as you get older and if you're male. So enlarged prostate, a lot of guys are making bathroom trips, and that's really creating all kinds of problems, with sleep continuity. So yeah, so what I used to say was I used to do something called the 3-2-1 rule, which was 3 hours before bed stop alcohol, 2 hours before bed stop food, 1 hour before bed stop fluids, which I still like generally speaking, but I'm thinking it really should be 3-3-3. You should just basically fast 3 hours before bed. Other than, like, if you need water, please have water. And I mean, by the way, if you're diabetic, this is a terrible idea. So
Yeah.
talk with your doctor. Yeah, no, I'm starting to wonder, like, I'm starting to think that just having nothing in your stomach before you go to bed is probably a better idea than not.
Yeah. Same, same. And when you wake up in the morning, is it important to hydrate right away?
Absolutely. So you need to hydrate before you caffeinate. I tell everybody that. Like, if the first liquid that crosses your lips is caffeinated, stop. Like, you're not doing your body a favor here. Get yourself some hydration. And now I will tell you one thing I did learn when writing the book about hydration that I thought made a lot of sense, but it took me a while to kind of get it. Is sip, don't gulp. Right. So it took me a while. So I'm the guy at the gym, like, I'm standing at the gym with my handy dandy water bottle, right? And I'm putting it in there to get my filtered water. And there's always somebody in front of me, and they fill it up about halfway, and then they go, and they down it, and then they put it in again. And I'm that idiot. I tap on their shoulder and I say, hey, sip, don't gulp. And they're like, they always tell me the same thing. They always say, I'm just trying to get it in, right? So they're trying to get enough water in their system. And what I try to explain to them is it's not going in, it's going through, right? And so here's the thing is when we wake up in the morning, our body's like a sponge. Right. So, when you wake up in the morning, you go to the kitchen, right? And the sponge, like, it's hard as a rock. Like, you can bang nails with that thing. Right. But if you open up the faucet all the way, like gulping water, what happens? The water hits it, splashes off, and doesn't really do any good. But if you open up the faucet a little, like sipping, right? A couple drops get on there. It starts to absorb. It fills out. Now you've got a useful tool. Right. We are the sponge in this story. Right. If we sip, don't gulp, like, we just get more water in. It doesn't just go zipping through. And the other big thing is if you work out in the mornings, you're going to need a little bit more hydration, depending upon if you work out outside, depending upon what part of the country you're in. Like, there's a whole host of different things. As far as an amount is concerned, I tell people take your pounds and multiply it by about 0.6. That'll give you, like, probably your total ounce if you can in a day. You want to try to get most of that in before, like, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Because again, it's great to, like, not have to be peeing all night long. But I mean, I've seen recommendations for everything from, you don't need that much water. You only need maybe, 30 ounces a day, 40 ounces a day, all the way up to, 120, 140 ounces a day. So I think it really depends a lot on the medications you take, your personal metabolism, your salt intake, your blood pressure. I mean, you could go crazy trying to figure it out.
Traditional supplements like capsules, tablets, powders, and gummies, and even nutrients from food typically don't even get into your cells and get you the job that you're looking for. Some people call this expensive urine, where you spend all this money on supplements and you end up literally flushing it down the toilet. So how do you know if the supplements you're taking are actually getting into your cells and giving you the job that you're looking for? Well, there's an amazing technology called liposomes. Liposomes are microscopic spheres that actually bypass digestion and deliver right into your cells. It's one of the best delivery systems for nutrients outside of getting an actual IV. And the cool thing about these liposomes is you could take them with you when you travel, take them at your home like I'm doing right now. I use a company called Live On Labs. They have incredible liposome products, and I have two right here. They're lipospheric B complex and they're lipospheric vitamin C. And here's how you take it. It's very simple. I'm putting it into about 5 ounces, maybe 4 ounces of water. I'm also grabbing their vitamin C. I'm doubling it up and putting that into this water as well. And you just want to mix it gently because you don't want to damage the liposome and the nutrients. You just want to mix it like that, and then you just drink it. And you could actually get an entire carton of their B complex for free if you go to
liveonlabs.com. That is LIVON labs.com, or click the link in the notes down below. Add the B complex carton to your shopping cart. Add any of their other products as well, and apply the coupon code Azadi25. And then you just click submit, check out, and you'll get this shipped to your door. Check out Live On Labs, check out their amazing products, and I know you'll feel a difference just like I do. What are your thoughts on looking at your urine as a way of seeing if you're hydrated or not?
Always. If your pee is clear, you are good to go. I actually even published there's a chart that they keep at the urinals in India that goes from a gradation from clear to like light yellow to like, there's all these different shades. And if you look down, if your pee is a certain shade, it tells you if you're dehydrated or not.
Interesting. And you mentioned get hydrated before you get caffeinated. What are your thoughts on waiting an hour and a half after you wake up to have that cup of coffee with caffeine?
That's one of the things I recommend to all my clients. I tell them hydrate first, give yourself 90 minutes, then hit the caffeine.
The 90-minute caffeine rule. Yeah, that's what I do every morning. Every morning.
Works very well.
Now, as we land the plane here, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about banana tea, because it's such a hit when I with my community. And of course, I learned about banana tea from you. You call it nature.
Yep.
Well, so share with my audience, what is banana tea? How do you make it? And why is it beneficial?
So banana tea is important because of magnesium. So most people are actually magnesium deficient. And magnesium is something you have to eat. Your body doesn't produce it, but your body does store it in your bones and things like that. So getting more magnesium is good for you. Also, it's good for your digestive system, a whole host of different reasons. But a lot of people don't like to swallow a lot of pills. They're not interested in taking gummies, and they're looking for some kind of nice, fun ritual before bed. And so I created this idea called banana tea. So it turns out that bananas are loaded with magnesium, but the peel has got about 3 times the amount of magnesium as the fruit itself. So what I do is say, go get an organically grown banana so there's no pesticides on it. Wash it off, get off the dirt. Chop off the tip and the stem and cut it in half. All I've asked you to do at this point is wash a banana and cut it in half, okay? Take the 2 halves with the fruit and the peel on it, drop it into about 3-4 cups of boiling water, boil it till it turns brown, or about 4 or 5 minutes, then steep the water and drink the water. It's loaded with magnesium, phytosteroids, things that help it absorb really nicely. As Ben has told me, it's not high in glucose, so that's good, or at least your sugar didn't spike.
Yeah, it didn't raise my blood sugar, so it should be fasting safe and fasting friendly. How many times have you shared banana, like that recipe, with people?
Hundreds, literally hundreds.
I'm sure you have. You could get Dr. Michael Breus's book, Sleep, Drink, Breathe, Simple Daily Habits for Profound Long-Term Health, over at sleepdoctor.com/Dr. Mike, DRMIKE. We're going to drop a link for that down below. I have one final question before
that's the website where people can go if they want to get a sleep study. If they want to buy the book, they can just go to Amazon.
Oh, okay. I got that wrong. Okay. If they want to do a sleep study, that's the link. If you want to get the book, go to Amazon or bookstore. Yep. Okay. Got it. There you go. Thank you for clarifying that. And you have a whole bunch of other great books, The Power of When, Energize book, and many, many others. Yep. I didn't tell you this, but I have a new book coming out with Metabolic Freedom, May 13th, probably after this is released. And I talk about the causes of metabolic dysfunction. There's a whole chapter on sleep, poor sleep. You're going to love that, poor circadian rhythm. So it aligns very well.
Perfect.
And there's also a chapter on gratitude. I call it vitamin G. So what I ask all my guests about, is I always ask them this question. I didn't ask you 4 years ago because I wasn't talking about this, but now I am. Okay. It's about gratitude and all the amazing anti-inflammatory sleep benefits that come with being grateful. So Dr. Michael Breus, what do you have gratitude for today?
Well, I was going to tell you how I use gratitude for sleep.
Yeah, do that too. I want to learn about that. And then tell me what you're grateful for.
Sure. So the way I teach my clients about gratitude is a lot of times when you're lying in bed, like if you wake up in the middle of the night and your head is spinning, I tell them to do a gratitude list.
I love it.
And it just, number one, it calms you down. It lowers your heart rate a bit. And you really think about the things that you're grateful for, and really, just like think about them, how they affect you. Why do you have those things in your life? And just kind of be relaxed in it, not get all hyped up about it, just be relaxed in it and those types of things. And I think it's really important. I think once you learn how to become grateful, then you also start to become grateful for nights where you can't sleep. So you're up and you're thinking about something important, or nights where you do sleep, and things like that. As a general rule, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my family. And I feel like I've gotten to a great place in my life. I feel like I've been able to get to a place in my life that I wasn't really sure was going to happen, but finally kind of got here. And it's fun to be an influencer and talk to people all day about sleep. I'm very grateful that the world has accepted me as kind of hopefully one of their educators in the wonderful world of sleep, and hopefully they listen.
I love it. If you enjoyed that interview, you're going to love this interview with Dr. Ben Bikman, all about the scientific way to burn belly fat extremely fast.
These are disorders that our ancestors would have never known. At the risk of being political, this is one of the consequences of capitalism, where capitalism is so good in improving people's lives that now we're suffering maybe the one consequence of it, which is that we have too much.